Are you ready to smile in the face of change? It's easy. Just do it. Just, nah, no, it's actually not that simple. Change is hard. I mean, especially if it has to deal with you, if it's impacting your team negatively, change isn't this easy thing that we just automatically smile about, no matter how many positive or motivating YouTube videos or books or podcasts that you listen to. Something that's so critical is understanding the reasoning behind the change as the leader, as the manager, as the entrepreneur, as the executive, whatever your role is. It's so important that you start with understanding why the change is necessary. And if it's not necessary, don't do it. I mean, there's so much growth that people get excited about, or growth that, I mean, growth is one of those things that people just can get obsessed with. And organizations, companies, like, let's grow, let's get bigger, let's get better, whatever that is. But sometimes growth and change isn't always healthy, right? There's unhealthy forms of it. So beginning with you as the leader, understanding why is so critical, because if you don't get it, how are you going to share it with other people? It's really important to focus on a couple of things. And I would say process and people are two different things. And if you focus on the process and not the people, that can really get you into trouble. And if all you do is focus on the people and you don't really give them a process or a mechanism for success, then it's going to fail. One of the tools that I like to use as a leader is an acrostic by John Maxwell, and that's Plan Ahead. It's got several steps in there, and it's easy to remember because plan ahead, change is coming, proactive. How do I make this a positive thing? Here's some step by steps. When I'm faced with change, it's easy for me as a leader to try to just roll it out and not really think about all the different steps and people that can get involved. It's so important that we as the leaders get the reasoning behind it and deem it necessary and critical to our operations that we roll out this change that allows us to go from me to we are the types of changes that we should be smiling about, because the most difficult challenges, the most difficult changes for us to be faced with, for us to implement with our teams, with our groups and with our companies, are those changes that will grow them, that will grow you, that will grow your leadership. So be excited for it. I know it's difficult because most often there are sacrifices to be made. People have to give things up. You might have to give more of your time, attention, and energy to implementing this change. And it's so key that you sacrifice first as the leader. Get the positive energy going. Get excited about the change. If you don't buy in and enjoy it and get pumped up about it, how do you expect your team to do that? So when you're faced with change, especially when it's the type of change that might be coming from up above you or from an external source or something that you just can't control, then make sure you've got your attitude figured out. Make sure you have your talking points and your message mapped out. And when I think about my own leadership, there's a couple of changes that just exploded my growth. Growing my family and having a kid was one of those changes. This is not really a work thing, but it impacted work. And I really believe it made me a better leader. When I had a kid, it was life-changing, obviously. Sacrificed so many things. And my wife and I went from having conversations like, what movie do you want to watch tonight? What do you want to do this weekend? To, okay, are you going to change him? Are you going to, how much sleep are we going to get tonight? I'll take care of him. Or you just do, when you have a kid, everything changes. You no longer get that extra few hours before you go to sleep. You no longer get some of the time that you might have playing a video game and or watching a video or hanging out with friends. A lot of those things you sacrifice, especially early on. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. When we had our son Levi, yes, I did have to sacrifice a lot. We changed our priorities, we changed our routines, we changed our schedule. I stopped watching certain shows and movies that really weren't helping me to be a better father, that really weren't growing, who I should be. But in the end, the change was for the better. And from time to time, I still play a video game, and it's important to balance those things. But when you're faced with a change, you give everything. Sometimes when you're faced with a major change, it requires you giving everything. But at the end of the day, it's so rewarding. It's so fulfilling. It is the greatest thing, the greatest change. It is the greatest event in my entire life. But it came at a cost. And so does most changes. It's critical when you're going through change, when you're faced with implementing the change, to expect the setbacks, to expect problems, and for things to just not go how you perfectly mapped it out. And when that happens, still have a good attitude. Find the silver lining and share that with the team. It's going to happen. So if you prepare your mindset that things aren't going to go exactly how you want them, especially with difficult change involving multiple people, multiple departments, just assume that things aren't going to go exactly how you want them to. And when you come in with that mindset, it's a lot easier to pivot, to be agile, and it will just serve you better coming into it, knowing that the change plan is going to need to change. And it's okay. It's okay. And through those problems, through those setbacks, the team might get hung up. They might become negative. And what I would recommend is when that happens, you need to be alongside them so you can catch some of those instances and you can catch some of the negative energy and recharge them by pointing to the success. That's a part of the plan ahead acrostic. Don't forget to point to the success, right? When there's setbacks and problems, point to success. And that will help them remember why the change is necessary, why this is impacting your customers, your patients, your clients. And if you're doing this consistently, daily, weekly, monthly, checking in, it will hardwire that with the team. If they forget the reason why the change is necessary, if they forget what success looks like, it'll be easy for them to get off track, to get negative and fixate on problems. So think possibilities, don't fixate on the problems, point to success, and the team will do the same thing. Another part, when you're rolling out change, it's so important that you allow time for acceptance, especially when there's a lot of people involved. People have different things going on in their work environment and outside of work, and depending on what the change is going to mean for them, they may need more time. It's important that if you see the change well in advance and you know it's going to involve certain people that will implement or influence the process, let them know well in advance. Don't hold the information back from them. Yes, it makes sense to share certain things with certain roles. However, I would certainly recommend that you give them the key parts of it. You probably don't need to give them the full end to end. People will need time. Processes will need time to smooth out, to work out the kinks. So be patient. Be patient and know it's going to take time for change. And there's going to be different phases and stages of your change depending on what your depending on what your depending on what the change is, it might be best to break it into stages and phases, and then that way it's easier to digest for yourself, to communicate to your team. All right. And a big part of implementing and influencing change is planning it out, getting everything ready. But don't forget to head into action and start sharing with and start rolling it out. And typically I recommend doing this in phases and increments. It's just easier for teams. And you as the leader most likely will be more familiar with what phase, what stage needs to be first. And to be honest, if you don't know, that's okay. Ask your leader, ask your team, help allow them to collaborate and empower you. Don't be afraid to ask questions, right? We're leaders that will thrive and grow and get better if we don't pretend like we know everything. No one's going to know everything. No one's going to have every tool in the leader toolkit, in the leader tool belt. Leadership doesn't have to be lonely. It can certainly be lonely, but it doesn't have to be that way. You're not by yourself. I'm here, right? You got me. It's going to be okay. You're an amazing leader. You got this. Go out and get them. Another change that I think about as a leader that helped me grow, but it wasn't fun in the moment, was leading teams in healthcare in the pandemic. I'm a lab manager, and our lab staff, they were scared. They were terrified. There were a lot of things that they didn't see firsthand, but they heard about it. And sometimes when you're disconnected, but you're still in the same building, it's almost more of a fear of the unknown, fear of uncertainty. And there were certain questions that I was asked that I had no idea that I was asking for myself. So when I was faced with some of these changes, masking mandates, vaccinations, social distancing, changing the number of people in a room for a meeting, there were some major changes that we had to do. Changing hours, changing positions. People were wondering, am I going to get sick? Am I going to survive this? Will I still have a job? Will our department still have money? There were so many questions and so many answers I just did not have, that I could not provide. I'll never forget one of the meetings that we had in our lab, and everyone was looking to me. The pressure was on. So many changes were about to happen. And I didn't know a lot, but I did know that we had gone through a lot of other difficult things. Maybe not something like this, but I focused on what I could do, what I could give them, and what I could promise. And as a leader, it's so hard, but you have to do it. Because everyone will look to you, and there will be times where you don't have all the answers. But those are the best times for you to step up. When there is a change up, leaders need to step up. Focus the team on all the things that we could control and that we had ownership of, including our attitude, including cross-training and helping other departments. Maybe our volumes went down, but that meant adding value to other departments. Those were some of the most difficult conversations, moments, situations that I had to go through as a leader. There were so many times on the phone or in person that people were afraid. People lost their jobs. People had to sacrifice time with families. But through all that darkness and through all of that uncertainty, our team came out stronger in the end. We bonded over it because we could always point back to some of those key moments. We could always remember that we survived, that we're still here after that. And the same is true of any change that you'll be faced with. So when you change your mindset about change. It will change your life. And this is a good reminder for myself as my team right now is going through a lot of change. Growth does not exist without change, period. There is no growth, there is no improvement, there is no leadership development without change. This is an opportunity for you to level up. This is an opportunity for you to gain experience points, to come out stronger, better, and a leader that you wish you always could have been. A leader that God has created you to be. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's content, please subscribe. I also am on Instagram, and there I have regular posts related to leadership, personal growth, and development. So if you enjoy things like this, feel free to check that out. And I can't wait to see you on the next video.